Kid Cudi's Entergalactic. A good album, but a bad movie. Okay, so a couple weeks back, Cudi dropped his new album alongside a movie that was released onto Netflix the same day. Originally it was meant to be a show, but for some reason it was turned into a film. Anyway, in this video I wanted to give my thoughts on both of them. So you're basically getting two videos in one. Wow. Okay, let's start with the positives because I really do like this album. I don't think it's one of Cudi's best, I probably wouldn't put it in my top 5, but I still think it's very good. The only issue with this album is that even though it's a short 45 minutes, there are a few filler songs in the second half that didn't leave much of an impression on me, like Can't Shake Her, My Drug, and Somewhere to Fly. I don't have much memory of these songs at all, even after listening to the album a lot of times. Overall, this album really isn't doing anything new for Cudi. It's not Indicud, Speeding Bullet to Heaven, or Passion Pain and Demon Slang. I feel like those albums really pushed Cudi forward into new sounds and territories that he hadn't explored before. Like he produced Indicud all by himself, so all of that really out there production, those electric guitar sounds and the manic drum patterning, was him, because he learned how to make beats in the year that led up to the album. Speeding Bullet to Heaven is of course Cudi's Kurt Cobain grunge tribute album. Does it live up to Kurt? No, not really. There are a couple songs like Trauma and Embers which I love though, but it was still a new sound for Cudi, taking his rock influence even further. On Passion Pain and Demon Slang, he teamed up with Pharrell on a few songs. Even though it went back to Cudi's hip-hop roots, the whole sound of the album has a distinct feeling, combining trap beats with what sounds like full-on orchestras. Entergalactic does feel like a throwback to the first Man on the Moon in particular. I mean, it's named after the song Entergalactic from that album. This project was actually announced before Man on the Moon 3, way back in 2019. We get songs like Do What I Want and Can't Believe, where Cudi is going in as a rapper. And then we also get songs like Willing to Trust and Maybe So, where it's him singing. So yeah, this album is essentially a return to Cudi's past, which is kind of fitting as it's his 10th and potentially last album. We get some really great songs out of it, like New Mode. Even though it takes us back to that classic sound, it feels like Cudi is in a new place. He's happier, more content with life. It kind of reminds me of Day and Night. Although now he's talking about how he's over his demons, which is quite a development for Cudi. What I noticed about this album is that Cudi isn't talking about his demons at all on here. There's not really a song where he dives into things plaguing his mind, except Maybe So, but even then it's a very comforting song. The only thing that's weighing on him is love. That's the theme of the album. It's what connects it to the original Entergalactic song. Even though Cudi doesn't rap about many other subjects, most of it's about how he's just killing life. For the most part, it doesn't ever feel samey. Almost all of the songs feel different from one another. They're so well written, and even though Cudi doesn't speak on as many topics as say Man on the Moon 2, there's a lot of variety while staying consistent. Apparently this might be his last album. Cudi says he's not really interested in making them anymore. He's made 10, including Wizard and Kids See Ghosts at this point, which is pretty insane for a run that's lasted just over 10 years. Fair enough that he wants to focus on movies now. Just recently he produced and starred in X, which is easily one of my favorites of the year. It's one of the most creative horror movies in a while, so I'm excited to see what he makes next. Entergalactic really feels like a full circle moment. It's sort of like Tarantino, how he says he's only going to make 10 movies. If this is Cudi's actual last album, which I highly doubt, but if it was for argument's sake, I couldn't think of a better way for him to go out. It wraps up his arc. He's finally found peace now. And that's such a good resolution to his story because we've heard about his ups and downs for years now. There's a track on the album called My Drug. Even though the song isn't great, it's a cool concept because he's talking about how love is his new drug. Where before he would just indulge in drugs and other substances to feel something, he feels the love now, and he has something real. Like I said in my last video on Cudi, I think what makes his music amazing is he goes into detail on the worst parts of his life. His cocaine addiction, his suicidal thoughts, depression over his dad's death, depression over becoming famous. But when he does songs that are positive, it feels that much more earned because we've heard the darkest shit from him. When you listen to Up Up and Away, it makes you feel so happy because of all the stuff that came before it. To see Cudi after all of that make a purely uplifting album and it's not repetitive or boring is really satisfying. So my favorite songs from this album are New Mode, Do What I Want, Can't Believe It, and Willing to Trust. Do What I Want was the first single. I think it slaps in the car, I think it slaps in the gym. It's a really solid rap song from Cudi. In the Netflix special, it's played over the characters going out to parties, which is basically what he's talking about on the track. Cudi is doing what he wants, he's living his life, and he doesn't feel held back by anything. Can't Believe It with 2 Chainz is the second really rap-heavy song. I like when Cudi raps because he has a very unique cadence, and it's instantly recognizable. He isn't the greatest rap lyricist though. You take his words at face value, and there usually aren't any double meanings or anything like that. So I definitely reckon 2 Chainz has the better verse. His flow here is infectious. It feels like he's just about to fall off the beat, and like he's just catching it with every bar. Finally, Willing to Trust. I love this song. As the title implies, it's basically about getting over trust issues. The beat switch at the end of this is just heavenly shit. It's such a satisfying beat change. Also, when Ty Dolla $ign comes in during the chorus, his backing vocals are elite as usual. These tracks will go down as classic Cudi songs. And as far as the rest of the album goes, pretty much every song is very solid. As an album talking about love, I don't think it's super nuanced in the way it handles the topic, but the songs are so catchy and Cudi sounds so polished over them that it comes together really quite nicely, and I'll definitely be coming back to it. Suffice to say, the album works much better than the special does. So this Netflix special is a romantic comedy based on the album concept. I was excited for it. I even mentioned it in my last video on Cudi because I thought it would be like a Saturday morning cartoon but with adult themes. That's what I feel like Cudi's music is tapping into, your inner child. Unfortunately, the final product was actually pretty bad. Here's why. This is very much in the style of Spider-Verse or Arcane. And whilst on paper it looks pretty cool, when you sit down and watch the movie, you notice that it's kinda low budget. It felt rushed, like it needed more put into it. One of the things I noticed about the movie early on was that the sound design was really sparse. Stay with me here, but sound design and animation is very different to live action. You watch the behind the scenes of The Incredibles. Every single sound has to be made and recorded into the movie. With live action, it's much easier to capture those sounds because in most cases you can just get them on the set that day. Say you need a door slamming sound or just background sounds to fill the scene. It's pretty simple. Whereas with animation, you have to create every single one of those sounds from scratch and then mix them together to make them sound natural. So that's one of the reasons why Pixar movies take a long time to create. But with Intergalactic, you really notice when they're outside of New York or they're sitting down inside a club or party, it really sounds like it was recorded in a studio. It sounds empty and you notice it.
How you been?
Good.
Hungry?
It almost felt like the music from the album was added as an afterthought, or to save money, because when they play one of the songs, all the other sounds are cut out as well. This is probably a way for them to be like, oh, we don't have to create sounds for the scene, and now it's just a music video. There's a lot of montages in this for a 90-minute movie, so it's not a very immersive show, and that wouldn't be as big of an issue if the story was good. But the dialogue sounds like if aliens came down to Earth and all they could use to learn about human culture was tweets.
Please don't tell me you'd actually wear that helmet.
Oh, I always wear a helmet. Safety first, bro. How do you think I've been able to stay chlamydia free since '03?
Who talks like this? Most of the dialogue in this is characters talking with their friends about their relationships. These very inconsequential exchanges. And I think it just comes down to that this doesn't have a good story. In fact, it doesn't have a story to start with. You know, when I listen to Cudi's music, I want to relate to something. I feel like his stuff, it's just the most relatable, authentic, just artistic music to listen to. Like I said before, he goes to dark places, but that's what makes it all the more powerful. Whereas here, everything just goes well for Cudi's character. His name is Jabari. There's not really any struggle in his life. All of the problems in the movie just come out of coincidence, basically. The main conflict of the movie is that his ex sends him a DM that his girlfriend misinterprets and thinks he's cheating on her. That's the conflict of the movie, and it just comes out of nowhere. It doesn't add to the themes or anything. Jabari doesn't have any flaws. He has a nice apartment, a good job where he's pursuing his passion as a comic book artist, good relationships. He's just winning all the time, and there's nothing in his way. Characters are supposed to have conflicts, struggles that they have to overcome to grow, or in some cases, regress. In this though, there's really nothing. There's nothing to attach yourself to because you don't know anything about Bari. He's just a blank slate character. I guess he's based on Cudi somewhat because they talk about Mr. Rager being this comic book character he's created. There's lots of Cudi's personality that comes into it. But if this movie wasn't connected to Cudi, you would have zero investment in the characters whatsoever. Of course, there are celebrities that voice pretty much all of the characters, like Ty Dolla $ign, Vanessa Hudgens, and Timothée Chalamet. But if you stripped away all of those names, this is really nothing. It doesn't tell a story. I just found it very inauthentic to anything human or real. None of the characters felt like real people engaging with each other, and I don't believe that they could exist outside of this 90 minutes. What I think would have been better is having Jabari be a comic creator who's on his grind whilst having to grapple with these relationship issues. It even could have reflected Cudi's rise in the music industry. Sure, it's simple, but at least it would have been something. But what we got is just about this perfect version of Cudi finding the most perfect girl ever, who's basically female him, and their perfect relationship together. There's so much in Cudi's music to be put into a movie or a TV show, especially using animation. This just felt so rushed. It didn't feel deserving of Cudi's name. I don't know how much he actually had to do with the writing and the creation of the show, but it was announced 3 years ago, so it's been in production for ages, and this is what the final product is? I guess they just put all the money into the celebrity cast, and then pumped out a half-done script. It's just an hour and a half of filler, nothing that captures his music. I wanted to love this though. I wanted to be like, wow, Cudi made an awesome show. To have a song for every episode and have that episode represent the song, I thought that was an insane idea, like a really cool idea, and it just didn't deliver on that. It didn't even deliver on a basic good story. Alright, so that was probably another controversial video. I've had a few of those recently, so nothing really out of the ordinary for me. Anyways, thank you guys so much for 30,000 subscribers. That's pretty insane, and I'm just gonna keep pushing and pushing to finally hit that 100k. So with that being said, more videos coming very soon, and take it easy.